The decisions I make, the process now, there's another element, there's another factor in my decision-making process, and that's my daughter's well-being. And so it was definitely a paradigm shift, in the way I think.
She lost her father at 10 years old. She watched her mother and her father's family fight over her in courtrooms for years, while the whole world had an opinion. She's the beneficiary of a multi-million-dollar estate. And now at 18, Imani Dior Asghedom is stepping into adulthood in one of the most complicated zip codes in the country, carrying a weight that most grown adults couldn't handle. This is the full story. To understand where Imani is right now, you have to understand where she came from. And that starts with her father. Nipsey Hussle, born Ermias Joseph Asghedom on August 15, 1985, grew up in Crenshaw, South Central Los Angeles. His mother was African American. His father was an Eritrean immigrant who came to the United States to build something better. By 14, Ermias had joined the Rollin' 60s neighborhood Crips. Not out of thrill-seeking, but because in Crenshaw, the gang structure was the community structure. It was protection. It was identity. It was the world directly in front of him. What made Nipsey different from so many who came up the same way was that he eventually used that deep understanding to try to change it from the inside. He started rapping. He opened the Marathon clothing store on Slauson Avenue, literally buying back the block he grew up on. His 2018 debut album Victory Lap was Grammy-nominated. He was sitting down with politicians and law enforcement officials to talk gang intervention. He had cracked a specific code, how to come from that world and build something lasting inside it. He was doing all of that while being a father. On November 9, 2008, Nipsey became a father for the first time. Imani Dior Asghedom was born to him and his then-girlfriend, Tanisha Foster. Nipsey was 23, still grinding in the underground rap scene. He wasn't famous yet, wasn't wealthy yet, but by all accounts, that little girl changed him immediately. He talked about it openly, that fatherhood shifted his entire outlook and fueled his grind in ways nothing else had. He took Imani to events. He shared those moments publicly. People close to him consistently described his bond with her as something real and deep, not just for the cameras. She grew up watching her father be more than a rapper. She watched him host free health fairs in Crenshaw. She watched him turn a clothing store into a movement. She watched him sit down with activists and politicians. To her young eyes, that was just her dad, a man who showed up, who had a plan, who tried every day to be a compass in a neighborhood that had none. Then, on March 31, 2019, Imani was 10 years old. She woke up that morning as the daughter of a living legend in the making. By the afternoon, she became the daughter of a martyr. Nipsey was shot and killed in front of his own store, the Marathon Clothing on Slauson and Crenshaw. He was 33 years old. His killer was a man from the same neighborhood, affiliated with the same gang. The senselessness of it shook the entire hip-hop community and beyond. And Imani had to process her own private grief inside a very public storm. The vigils outside Marathon Clothing drew thousands. Tributes from Jay-Z, LeBron James, and Barack Obama were everywhere. The world was mourning her father while she had nowhere quiet to fall apart. The grief had an audience, and that audience never left. Within weeks of his death, the legal battles began. Nipsey's family, his brother Black Sam, his sister Samantha, and his mother Angelique moved quickly to obtain legal guardianship of Imani. Their concerns centered on Tanisha Foster's ability to properly care for her daughter. Tanisha, for her part, voluntarily agreed to the arrangement initially, believing it would be best for Imani to maintain the lifestyle and connections she had built with Nipsey's family, while Tanisha stabilized her own situation. But by 2022, Tanisha filed a petition to end the guardianship. She claimed that the family had used their financial power to restrict her access to her own daughter. She said Imani was asking when they could finally live together again. In her court filing, she wrote that there was no longer any need for guardianship, that Imani routinely asked when she and her mother would be able to be together, and that she was begging the court to make that happen. A mother separated from her child, pleading with a courtroom for the right to raise her. And on the other side, a family fiercely protecting the child of a man they loved and lost. For years, Imani was caught directly in the middle, grieving, growing up, watching the two sides of her world fight over her in legal documents while she was just trying to be a teenager. In March 2025, that battle finally reached a resolution. Court documents filed on March 5, 2025 confirmed that Tanisha Foster was officially granted joint physical and legal custody of Imani, sharing that custody with Black Sam. Under the agreement, Imani spends 60% of her time with her mother. Nipsey's mother and sister step down from their co-guardian roles. Sam remains the family side guardian, and both he and Tanisha share equal decision-making rights for Imani's well-being. Tanisha's full parental rights were formally recognized, something she had been fighting to have acknowledged for years. For a custody situation involving this much history, pain, and public attention, reaching an agreement rather than forcing a judge to hand down a ruling says something. Imani was 16 when the agreement was filed, and old enough that her own voice almost certainly shaped what the outcome looked like. On the financial side, a full estate accounting filed in November 2023 confirmed the value of Nipsey's holdings at $11 million, roughly $7 million in accounts, and $4 million across his business interests, including Marathon Clothing, Marathon Studios, and his full trademark portfolio. Imani and her younger brother Cross are the sole beneficiaries, each holding a 50% share. Black Sam has kept the businesses operational and expanded them. Lauren London has used her platform to continue Nipsey's financial literacy mission through programs like the Marathon 100K Pitch Competition. The legacy is being protected. The money is there, but none of it changes what Imani's daily reality looks like on the ground. She is growing up in South Central Los Angeles, Crenshaw specifically, in a neighborhood where her father's face is painted on murals around the corner from where she sleeps. The store that bears his name is the same spot where he was killed. The culture she is surrounded by is the same culture he was trying to slowly reshape when his life was taken. Roland 60's DNA runs through her family. Black Sam was deeply rooted in that world long before the music business took over. The streets around Slauson and Crenshaw did not transform overnight because Nipsey preached transformation. The concerns people in the community are quietly raising are not accusations. They are the questions of people who loved Nipsey and watched him get killed in front of his own store, despite doing everything right. They watched a man who spent his last years trying to bridge the gap between street culture and community uplift get taken in broad daylight. They don't want to watch his daughter navigate those same pressures without him there to guide her through them. Inherited wealth is not a shield from cultural gravity. Imani will come into her share of that estate. But she is also a teenager growing up in a zip code where gang affiliation is still a daily reality, where everyone who loved her father knows every detail of how he died, and where her last name carries weight on every block she walks. That is both a blessing and a burden at the highest level. The community love surrounding her is genuine. The protective circle around Nipsey's daughter is real. But the same culture that wraps around her also carries the same gravitational pull that Nipsey himself spent years trying to resist without ever being fully able to leave. What Imani needs, what she has always needed, is people doing the specific, intentional daily work of helping her figure out who she is outside of her father's story. Not just legal guardians managing an estate, not just family members honoring a legacy, but consistent presence from people who love Imani for herself, not for what she represents to the culture. Because Nipsey Hussle didn't just leave behind an $11 million estate. He left behind a daughter who is right now, in real time, making the decisions that will shape the rest of her life. A daughter who lost her father at 10 in front of the entire world and has been navigating the aftermath publicly ever since. She is here. She is moving forward. Every appearance, every post, every step into her own identity is proof of that. The marathon he started always had a human cost, and the most important part of continuing it right now isn't the clothing store or the music catalog. It's making sure she's okay. Drop a comment. What do you think Imani's future looks like? And what do you think Nipsey's family owes her beyond the estate?